Perform the indicated operation by hand, then use a calculator to check your work. So now we're getting into the multiplication of signed numbers. So let's just take a look at what we're going to be dealing with here. In our first problem, we're going to have a -3 times a -7. Our second problem, we have a +5 times a -8. And our last problem, we have a -12 times a +26. So hopefully you went through and saw in your reading and in your class preparation that negative times a negative will always give us a positive number. So negative times negative will always equal a positive. And so since I have -3 times -7, I know that my answer will be a positive, and since it's positive, we can put the plus sign there if we want to, but typically we don't. Typically we would just write down the number, so negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 7 is 21. Or we could just write the answer as just plain old 21 without showing the positive, because we understand that that positive sign is there whether we write it or not. Now in our next problem, 5 times -8, notice that this 5 doesn't have a negative sign up front, so that means it has to be positive. And we know that a positive times a negative will always give us a negative. So remember, this is positive times a negative. So positive times a negative is a negative. 5 times 8, we know the answer is 40. So my final answer would be -40. Notice when I did both of these problems, I did sort of work with the signs first and then came back and dealt with the numbers. Remember up here I said negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 7 is 21. Down here I said positive times a negative is a negative. 5 times 8 is 40. This is a good strategy when you're doing multiplication with signed numbers. Take care of the sign first, and then you can come back and just focus on the numbers. Now in our next problem, -12 times +26. So I've got my order different, but notice that I still have a negative number and a positive number and a negative number. Those are still going to give me a negative answer. So a negative times a positive is always going to give me a negative. So if the signs are different, my answer is going to be negative. So negative times a positive, we know the answer is going to be negative. 12 times 26, well, I'm going to have to work that out longhand. So 12 times 26, 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1 is 7, 6 times 1, and then 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2. And when we add that all up, we get 2, 1, carry the 1, and that's 312. So our final answer would be negative 312. Okay, so I've got my three answers. I've got 21. Let me just rewrite this one here. We've got 21, we've got -40, and we've got negative 312. So let's pull up the calculator and make sure that our answers came out right. We're going to use our negative sign down here for our negative. So -3, we're going to multiply that by -7. And you can use the parentheses or not, either way is okay. And notice that equals positive 21. Now when we do 5 times -8, I'm going to enter that one in a little bit differently. I'm going to use the parentheses to show the multiplication. 5 parenthesis -8. And then be sure to close the parenthesis if you open them. And let's see what my calculator does with that. Oh, my calculator didn't like that very much. So I'm going to go back in. I'm just going to clear that out, and I'm going to use the multiplication sign. 5 times -8. And sure enough, that gave us the -40. Then our final answer, -12 times positive 26. So I just enter in the 26. And that equals -312, just like we expected that it would be.